Hey, Bobbies, how you doing? Happy 1 year closer to the day you turn 13. And I watched a lot of movies this year. Hey, let's rank them.
Go on, Rita, baby.
At one point, Ice Age was actually good, and I find it very amusing just how far down the shitter the series has gotten. It's gotten so bad that I was 100% convinced that they couldn't get any worse. Why did they make another movie? Especially a side movie starring the most annoying characters in the whole series. The idea itself is awful, but the execution's even worse. The animation looks way more cheap than ever before, and if you look close enough, you can even see the pixelated textures on the models. The story is Crash and Eddie accidentally fall into the Lost World, and they meet up with Buck again, and there's an abysmally designed villain named Orson that wants revenge for something. Animated kids movies are so repetitive that they forgot to even add the bullshit reason why he even wants revenge. I mean, sure, they banished him, but he wanted revenge even before that. Oh, so dramatic exposition shows that Orson killed everyone in Buck's team except for him and a flat-faced dummy thick that doesn't look like she belongs at all. But hey, neither does Orson, the only other character this movie introduced to the franchise. Then both of their guilt finally gets resolved in the third act because they realize that it was not Buck's fault nor Dummy Thick's fault. It was both of their fault. And then they bro hug it out. Fuck this movie. Please let Ice Age die.
That sounds really groovy.
Blacklight is yet another mediocre Liam Neeson action. I can't even say that anymore. This is bad. Really bad. The whole movie was very underwhelming. There are characters that do absolutely nothing. There are conflicts that are never resolved. I originally thought this was a long movie because I was an hour and a half in. The third act still hasn't happened. But then the movie just ends. There is no third act. God, this was such a waste of time. Liam Neeson's becoming the new Bruce Willis.
I tell you what, let's see. Well,
Turning Red is quite possibly the worst Pixar film of all time, and not just because the obnoxious people say you're a racist white privileged asshole if you don't like it, mostly because it's a bad movie. Pixar is going through that transitional period every company has where they focus way harder on trying to be diverse than actually making their product good. A great example for this is their casting choice for the main role. She's a brand new actress that hasn't been in any other mainline production, and Jesus Christ, it shows she's awful. Every time she talks, I want to rip my ears off, and then I realize that doing that would do jack shit and I would still hear it. The metaphor of a giant red panda being a woman's period makes no fucking sense. Do periods exist because of an ancient curse that runs in your family? Can you do a ritual to permanently get rid of your period? Should you embrace your period and show it off in public? If your answers to these questions were no, then the movie would like to disagree. Even if it wasn't for the movie thinking it's way more clever than it is, I still hate it. The whole time watching, I was either uncomfortable or annoyed. The movie goes out of its way to do a bunch of anime things because the characters are Asian and anime is the only thing you can identify Asians with, I guess. There's a lot of
Liam Neeson! Oh, I'm so quirky, look at my cut face!
And yes, the animation style is quite bad, and apparently liking good character design makes me cringe according to Shafferless.
nice to see Brick safe and sound.
Morbius is impressive. They somehow found a way to make this movie feel both unoriginal and uninspired, which makes no sense at all, but hey, neither does this movie. Stuart Leto gets vampire powers. This other guy gets vampire powers, but he's evil. Stuart Leto kills evil vampire. The end. Well, I guess that's not all that happens. There's a cardboard cutout love interest. I don't care. She dies. I don't care. But she's not dead. I don't care. There's no conflict! Besides, of course, the oh-so-popular you are evil and I am not evil conflict, despite the fact that he slaughtered several people, but they forgot about that. The characters learn nothing. They accomplish nothing. I learn nothing. I accomplish nothing. I'm going to continue accomplishing nothing. I'm going to be forgotten by everyone. And so is Morbius. I wrote this review before it became one of the least funny memes to ever exist.
After all he's been around and
The original R.I.P.D. wasn't terrible. I mean, it existed, but I think I can speak for everyone when I say no one wanted this. A prequel to R.I.P.D. Well, golly, I wonder how Roy became a part of the R.I.P.D. Oh, because he died? Thanks, movie. Not only is this one of the most pointless follow-ups of all time, but it also sucks. First of all, Jeffrey Donovan looks nothing like Jeff Bridges, and his impression of Jeff's iconic voice sounds more like those I could do 100 voices videos you find on YouTube. And I know it's a modern movie, so they must race swap, but it makes no sense here. They decided to race swap the main character, or at least how everyone sees him, which in the original was a blonde chick. But now, in a movie that takes place in the 1800s, before the Civil Rights Movement, everyone sees her as black. And no one has a problem with this, despite people of color not being treated like actual human beings back then. Race swapping characters never serves a purpose anyway, and all it does here is make the Western setting less believable. And yes, I'm really babbling on about this because the movie is so bland and generic, I can't think of anything else to talk about. It's poorly acted, it's poorly shot, and the fight scenes suck. You can watch the mediocre original just fine without this.
my beauty should be crowned.
I've never been much of a fan of Henry Selick's movies. Well, Coraline is pretty good, but not so much as other stuff. But I'm genuinely starting to appreciate those films more, because his newest film, Wendell and Wild, is one of the most lifeless movies released this year. It's hard to tell what emotions the movie's trying to make you feel when no one ever shows emotion. Even the music never helps set the tone because it's all very bland and directionless. All the characters are as one-dimensional as they come, the voice acting is downright terrible, the humor just borders on Ren and Stimpy level gross out, and the ending was fucking stupid. There's not much else to say.
The King of Limbo.
I wonder how Kevin Hart feels knowing that he can only be casted as a cowardly man-baby that only exists for the other main character to say, "My God, so embarrassing." Because just like all those films, that's the exact character he plays in The Man from Toronto. The story is, Mr. rents out a cabin, but he arrives at the wrong one due to him reading the address wrong. The address he went to is full of a bunch of terrorists waiting for an assassin to interrogate a man they have tied up, and he gets mistaken for the assassin, so he plays along. Mr. eventually meets up with the real assassin, and he's played by Evil Venom. Evil Venom decides to take advantage of the fact that people think Mr. is Evil Venom, and then over the course of their wacky adventure, Evil Venom learns to love again. Aww. The whole movie is just overlapping cliches, and those cliches could at the very least be pulled off well, but no. The first two acts are the typical schlock you'd expect from an action comedy, but the third act is really bad in particular. It's also sloppily put together.
Well, he's had his ups and he's had his downs.
Beast, to put it simply, is Cujo with less boogers, featuring some of the most obnoxious children to ever grace the big screen.
Stop saying you're gonna save us, Dad. You couldn't even save Mom when she had cancer.
Hollywood seems to have this belief that children can't act, and due to this belief, the audience always suffers with abysmal performances that take away any potential tension in every scene they're in. And it doesn't help that their only purpose is to constantly put themselves in more danger with their sheer stupidity. I'm glad this movie lost money. Maybe that will make people stop rehashing older films that did the same thing better.
He's had his smiles and he's had his frowns.
The VHS series is already far from anything special, but in Hollywood, even okay movies need to be milked dry. Ever since VHS viral, they seem to forget what the point of the movies were to begin with. People find VHS tapes and watch them, and in between the tapes, it updates you on their situation. It's very simple, and yet it's still too complex for them to remember why they even did it. Since then, it's just been a collection of shorts and nothing more to it. But for some stupid reason, they just use a bonus short but play sections of it in between the other shorts. It's as if they remembered there was something in between the shorts, but they couldn't remember what, so they were like, fuck it, let's put some random ass short in between the other ones. It makes no sense, but this one took the confusion a step further. The bonus short here, which is some goofy ass army men stop motion, turns into a normal short in the middle of the movie, but not in a creative way or anything. The brother of the person who was making it was just like, "Oh dude, why are you using my camera?" Anyway, yeah, most of the shorts sucked. The last one was fun enough, but didn't even come close to saving it.
But I'll still say he should be crowned.
Another year, another butchered Hollywood franchise's epic conclusion, but not really. It didn't conclude anything! All that gets solved is stuff this movie introduced! The last movie ended with the PETA supporting trio releasing dinosaurs into the wild so they don't die, which is beyond stupid, but let's forget about that. I assume this movie would also be stupid, but at the very least fun, because as Brundlefly said in the last movie, humans and dinosaurs have to coexist. 2.5 hours of nonstop dinosaur massacres? Hell yeah, that sounds awesome! But no, they felt like the dinosaur portion of Jurassic Park's story has overstayed its welcome, so they decided that the obstacle of this movie is to stop a bunch of wasps from fucking with a food chain. What a missed opportunity. It's a fucking shame. You turned what could have been the most fun movie of the year into a bland, directionless piece of mediocrity. Half of the characters don't even need to be here, especially the returning cast from the original. It feels like they were only added for their names on the poster. It's so forced, I was honestly expecting Samuel L. Jackson to appear and say, "Hey, why did you assume I was dead? The dinosaur only bit my hand off. My death was off camera." Their character has no development, their performance reeks of not wanting to be there, and all the action scenes they're in are boring due to them being old as shit. And they simply don't feel like the same characters they were in the originals. It's almost like the writers didn't care. The motorcycle chase is a great example of what this movie could have been. The protagonist is being chased by raptors in a city overrun by dinosaurs. It's fun, it's exciting, the sound is excellently mixed. The series was already fucked ever since Fallen Kingdom came out, but they missed the opportunity of going out with a badass bang.
The King of Limbo.
Whoever keeps letting Roland Emmerich make movies needs to stop. This guy hasn't made a single decent movie in his nearly 40-year career. I haven't seen Stargate or Patriot, but they most likely suck too for the sole reason of them being directed by Roland Emmerich. All this guy knows how to do is either boring-ass patriotic shit or boring-ass disaster shit, and sometimes even combines them for the gigabore. His newest movie, Moonfall, doesn't hit quite so hard with its politics, but it is boring-ass disaster shit with a franchise-bait ending to top it all off. They might as well say, "Guys, this is only the beginning." A few YouTubers have been saying this is so bad it's good, and I don't really see it. It just seems like boring-ass disaster shit to me. The easiest way I can describe how this film feels to watch is with this unedited clip from Cloudy with a Chance at Meatballs.
Blah, 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 science.
Boring!
Oh, what more can a poor boy do? What?
Black Widow, Panther, Lightning, Canary, Bolt is a superhero, but far darker and more edgy. They needed a hero, but instead they got someone who saves people but doesn't get along with other people who save people. The supernatural CGI fights, the sequel bait, the epic slow-mo, the characterless old man that only exists to give a false sense of drama by dying before the finale, the goofy side characters that were shoehorned in for the sole reason of getting everyone in the theater to laugh out loud to the most predictable jokes to ever exist, really show that this is reshaping the genre in ways no one thought possible. They're taking so many risks to truly evolve a stale genre, and I cannot wait for Black Adam 27. I gotta give Halloween Ends credit. I didn't even remotely expect what I was getting into. I had this theory that all these sequel trilogies follow a pattern. Film 1, just copy the original film but give it a fresh coat of paint. Film 2, be really stupid. Film 3, be really boring. Star Wars and Jurassic Park did it, so I expected Halloween Ends to rule of third my theory into the limelight. But no, I was wrong. Very wrong. It is way more stupid than Halloween Kills, and even saying it's slightly dumber than Halloween Kills would be saying something. It feels like an edgy preteen who loves Donnie Darko wrote the screenplay and how it explains almost nothing. Except in Donnie Darko's case, I'm convinced there's actually something that makes sense hiding beneath due to how well received it is. I genuinely think a bunch of randomized shit was mashed together in hopes that they'd get lucky and it would all make sense. I know that sounds like an exaggeration, but you'd have to see the movie to truly understand what I'm saying, and yes, I'm actually recommending this fucking thing. Nothing makes sense, and the dialogue is beyond abysmal, but I love it. It's like an angry chihuahua trying to hurt you by biting your fingers. I can't be angry with it, it's so pathetically adorable. It desperately tries to be badass, symbolic, metaphorical, romantic, deep and thought-provoking, you know, everything that'll make a really good movie, but I can't help but think that the screenplay is a stolen creepypasta. It's really fucking funny how serious it takes itself, even though the first half is pretty boring. But hey, on the technical side, the sound is actually pretty good.
What more can a poor boy say?
Lightyear is just pathetic. Ever since the nostalgia-baiting message at the beginning telling you that this was Andy's favorite movie, it's even more pathetic that the creator blamed the bad reviews on trolls. No, I'm pretty sure it has bad reviews because of the lousy script. Even ignoring the fact that a lesbian couple had a baby, every character is very underdeveloped, the commander randomly forgiving Buzz's crimes for no reason, the movie not knowing how time travel works, Zurg being a future version of Buzz which messes with Toy Story canon, the very marketable cat that is somehow never seen in Al's toy barn, ignoring all that! The main character is incredibly incompetent. There's no way this easily jumpable whiny embarrassment would be marketed as a superhero. He didn't even know that time moves faster in space. How did he even get this job? The only positive the film has going for is that it's the first Pixar film in years to actually look good. And it looks very good. It's one of the best looking Pixar movies out there.
I could use your help in any way.
Home Team is yet another sports comedy by good old Happy Madison, and it's just as bland and forgettable as the rest of them. The story is Paul Blart is an NFL coach, and he gets fired because he cheated, and then he decides to visit his son, who he's rejected due to working full-time. He also finds out that his son is also playing football, and he's being coached by Shark Boy, but he really sucks at coaching, so Paul Blart decides to take over. And get this, they win. And of course, they tack on this extremely underdeveloped drama of him not being a good father, and it's resolved super easily because, as I said, it's underdeveloped. Not like any of that even matters, because he goes completely against what he learned with his moral dilemma, because he goes back to the NFL in the end. Oh shit! Spoiler. The only part of this movie I liked was when it played We Are Young, because it's a good song. However, the movie did not make this song, so I'm not giving it any extra credit. Stay away unless you like the thought of seeing Kevin James suggestively chew gum for an hour and a half.
He took his courage to the brink.
Not only was Terrifier 2 heavily hyped for me with its audience praise and all those cases of fainting and vomiting, but it's also one of the longest slasher movies ever to exist, running at a whopping 137 minutes. Despite disliking the first one, I was still pretty curious and honestly, as I said, hyped. I really need to stop giving in, because it's just an average-ass slasher with a lot of filler in between scenes. But hey, average is better than bad, so this is a superior sequel. The practical effects and set design are very impressive for such a low budget, and just like the first time around, I enjoyed watching Art the Clown be goofy. But I at the very least expected it to shine a little light on just what art is, but it doesn't. In fact, this movie explains almost nothing. How could the dead father see the future? Who is the girl clown? Why is she even in the movie since she does nothing? Why did the movie insinuate that she was an illusion when she clearly interacts with people later in the movie? Why did the main character's stuff get on fire? Why doesn't Art just kill her brother? Why is her sword supernatural? Why was I expecting a coherent story or narrative? Why do I keep watching modern horror movies when they're never good?
If it were me, I would turn to drink.
Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is considered by many, mostly children, to be the best video game movie of all time, and honestly I can see why people think that, because they're not allowed to watch PG-13 movies. It's got fart jokes, it's got flossing, it has a dance fight because of fucking course it does, it has the trademark nailed it line after a character doesn't nail something, and best of all, it has excessive pop culture references for the adults! This one does feel bigger than its predecessor. While the first Sonic felt like one of those shitty 2000s cartoon adaptations, this one feels more like a big summer blockbuster blockbuster. Not to say that the latter half is even that much better nowadays, but what I'm saying is I can see why critics say this one's better. And what's probably on a bunch of your porn-loving minds is if the great Finn McCool thinks so too. I don't know, probably. I haven't seen the original since I watched it in theaters, and the only way to know for sure is to watch it again, but I don't want to do that. There's a lot of stuff in this movie that pissed me off if I gave a shit, but I'm just too cool, so I don't. Not only that Sonic's not funny in the slightest, none of the actors want to be here, and Tails' voice makes me want to rip his vocal cords out, but the story is also very poorly thought out. After hearing that there was a war and none of Knuckles' tribe came back, how the hell does Sonic still assume that his owl mom's even dead? I expected something to happen in the end that explains this, but it never did. Not that I care. Humph. Anyway, it's fine enough for the younger crowd, but I don't approve of Hollywood trying to make a new generation of Sonic fans.
Well, that's the reason I think.
The house is a fantastic art piece, but at the same time, a confusing mess. The movie's divided into 3 sections. The first section is pretty good. I love the tension it sets up, and it makes sense for the most part. But after that, the movie no longer gives you anything to work with. Why is society full of furries now? Why is this gay rat harassing his dentist? Why is there a cult of rat bugs? Why is the world flooding? Why is the house now a boat? I watched an analysis video, and it kept saying things like, I think this means, and this probably means. And even after all that logic stretching, at the end of the video, all he really said was that a man sold his house to the devil and a curse was lifted at the end. That's it? What's the point of having so much foreshadowing, metaphorical imagery, and unclear direction if that's the story you wanted to tell? I'm perfectly fine with movies leaving some things up to your imagination. Hell, sometimes it makes the atmosphere that much better. But this movie leaves literally everything up to your imagination, so at that point, why not just go to sleep and have a dream? As I said, this movie's best viewed as an art piece than a movie, because the atmosphere, music, and especially the animation are all great. It just falls apart if you're a part of the context fan community.
He should be the King of Limbo.
The Lost City is yet another generic Welcome to the Jungle style movie, but with a twist! It's now a chick flick comedy. A woman in her mid-50s who's desperately trying to hide her age with makeup plays an erotic adventure novelist. However, she just so happens to be the only person to know some random ancient language, and her knowledge of those obscure characters gets her kidnapped by evil Harry Potter because he thinks there's a treasure on the island that she wrote about. But you see, this guy's in love with her, so he travels to the island to save her, but the only problem is that despite being a beefcake, he's also very cowardly, and that creates a bunch of comedic scenarios where he's afraid of stuff. They eventually find the ancient tomb that the map leads to, but it turns out that there's no treasure at all. But honestly, who cares about the treasure? The journey on the way made these two characters fall in love. I usually try not to explain the entire movie like this, but I honestly feel like I have to. I mean, it's really cheesy.
You had to face it enough sin.
Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness made me realize just how much I'm sick of all this multiverse bullshit. The MCU is a clusterfuck of alternate timelines, alternate universes within those alternate timelines, godlike beings that keep outdoing each other with their power levels, an infinite amount of said godlike beings due to there being an infinite amount of alternate universes, and a woman that can quite literally travel to said alternate universes and bring people with her. I'm just saying that Endgame was a mistake. Now any problem any hero faces in the future can just be solved with time travel and alternate universe shit. Actually, no, fuck that. Endgame was originally supposed to be the last movie, and for good reason. You can't build off that. But I'm sure they'll just forget about it when it's convenient for the writers. A guy without super strength falls hundreds of feet and survives completely unscathed. The villain brutally murders 2 members of the fan service council in front of these 2 bimbos, and they just look at each other like, hey, we're gonna kick her ass so bad, let's nod at each other like badasses. They make a preachy joke about how most universes have all their food free and how our universe is weird for having people pay for food, which is a really stupid joke and makes no sense, and I shouldn't have to explain why, so I won't. But all that's fine. It has Bruce Campbell. He's cool.
Well, what if I lose all my...
But at least he kept his tagging him.
Oh my god, Valkyrie is gay? Oh my god, Korg is no longer a rock monster, but a cock monster? Oh my god, Jane got superpowers with nothing but the power of love? Oh my god, a certain god was being a dick to Christian Bale, so that means all gods must die? Oh my god, Thor left the Guardians for the sole reason of Marvel not being able to think of anything to do with that plot line? Oh my god, there's a run that could grant any wish but was conveniently never mentioned before because if it wasn't, Thanos wouldn't have to bother collecting the Infinity Stone? Oh my god, Hollywood still thinks the screaming goat meme is funny because they're out of time? Oh my god! The MCU has overstayed its welcome and they're desperately looking for more movie ideas even though the series is already concluded? The answer is yes.
I think that we should be crowning him moves.
Uncharted at its very best is just fine. Its very best being not viewing this as an adaptation. But at its worst, it might as well not even be called Uncharted. Nathan Drake is a goody two-shoes here, and that's just wrong. They clearly only casted Tom Holland to sell tickets, but that doesn't mean he has to act like every other character he's played. Sully is a complete unlikable asshole here, and that's just wrong. They clearly casted Mark Wahlberg when Robert De Niro said, oh wait, this is a video game movie? Yeah, never mind, because Mark was already a part of the project, but that doesn't mean he has to act like every other character he's played. The villain is bland and forgettable, but thankfully he's betrayed and killed off early in bloodless PG-13 fashion. The only problem is, the true villain is just as bland and forgettable. The movie has some fun moments, but it's nothing you haven't seen a dozen times before. I'd skip it unless you aren't a fan of the games. And it's free. And you turn your brain off.
The King Limbo.
Barbarian is a horror movie that is split into 3 sections for some reason. I guess it was a way to try and make it feel more original, but there's really nothing it adds besides disappointment due to it making you think the film's gonna be unique. There's a pretty charming character dynamic between these two, but it leads to nothing. Usually horror movies make an established character's death meaningful to the continuation of the plot, either that or just have them as an excuse for a gory kill, but they only ever do that when there is no character to kill. What's the point of getting you to like a character just to kill him off and forget about him immediately? And the uselessness also shows in the second section. Sure, it had some pretty good dialogue and I enjoyed watching it, but just like the last thing, it leads to nothing. He's established to be a piece of shit and he dies a piece of shit. Honestly, I think the 3-section style hurts the film more than anything. All it does is just disappoint you with the outcome, that outcome being just a basic horror movie. And I find it quite symbolic that the movie ends the second the killing shot is fired, because at the end of the day, that's all it is. A basic horror movie. Why show anything more?
Take it away with you, baby.
Samaritan is so goofy and amazing. Anyone who likes dumb movies should definitely watch this. A badass version of Shark Boy and Lava Girl is the best way I can describe how it feels to watch this. It's the best kind of stupid, not the haha look at me, I'm so quirky, I know this is bad stupid, but the Spy Kid stupid, where no matter how goofy it gets, the movie still thinks it's the most awesome thing to ever exist. It starts pretty slow, but that just makes the third act feel that much more crazy. Sylvester Stallone's performance is unhinged, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
I'm not the good guy. I'm the bad guy!
It's not a good movie, so I can't with a good conscience put it any higher, but it's definitely a fun time.
That's cool.
Smile was disappointing. I was actually pretty into it when it started. It had good camera work and atmosphere, but the second the first jump scare happened, it all fell apart. At the end of the day, this is just every other supernatural horror movie you've ever seen disguised with some good moments. Going in, I assumed that the smile the victims of the entity had would actually mean something, but no, there was absolutely nothing they did with it. It was all for advertising. And it worked, because it made its money back tenfold thanks to people seeing the poster and thinking, oh, what is this, a movie where someone has a creepy smile? Oh, this looks like something original for a change, and totally not yet another possession movie. There were so many, haha, this thing you just saw didn't really happen moments, and by the 4th time it becomes so painfully obvious that it's fake that I thought they were going to have a twist that it was actually real. But even a stupid ass twist like that would be too complex for a movie like this. And of course, since this is like every other supernatural horror movie to ever exist, it goes without saying that the ending sucked ass. Werewolf by Night is, as far as the MCU goes, different in the very least, but not in the way it tells you. It claims to be an homage to early 1900s monster movies, and by that they basically mean they made an action movie with shitty CGI and put a black and white filter over it. I never once heard about this movie until I randomly saw it on Disney+. They put no effort into advertising it in any way. I think it might be because its length, because people don't want 50-minute movies, they want 2.5-hour-long toy commercials. They most likely aren't very proud of it, and rightfully so. The short length gives the film no times for things like proper character introduction, character development, satisfying payoff. All of these are practically non-existent here. The strong, independent woman that doesn't need men's help due to her being perfect in every way stays a strong, independent woman that doesn't need men's help due to her being perfect in every way. Yeah, it's not too different. Disney will always find an opportunity to tell you the definitive gender. Mamma Mia, Cookin' the Meatballs Pinocchio is a stop-motion musical, or I think it's a musical. It has a few in the first half, but then just strangely stops. It can't decide how cartoonish it wants to be. How does a car kill Pinocchio when he can swim up a waterfall? How does a bullet kill Pinocchio when he can swim in fucking body acid? How can Pinocchio get exhausted when he can leap from falling platforms? How does Pinocchio not know what simple words mean, but knows what hot chocolate is? Why does Pinocchio assume his dad is drowning? You don't know where he is. You were in the whale's mouth when you set off the naval mine, which you somehow know how to do. Also, the cricket with boobs is a fucking asshole. Not only does he get his wish despite not holding up his end of the bargain, but he doesn't even think to bring bring back both of Geppetto's kids. And on top of that, he made me look up if crickets actually have boobs. They don't, by the way.
What more can a poor boy do? What?
Oh my god, I get it. Women are awesome and capable of doing anything that a man can do. Or more specifically, something that dozens of men can't even do working together. I haven't seen the original Predator, but due to Prey being a prequel, I thought I didn't need to. There were some things I really liked about it. It was well shot, and the Predator is awesome. Every scene he's in is awesome, except for the climax where he conveniently acts like a slow, dumb plot device to show how strong and independent this teenage girl with 8-inch arms truly is. And that's also why he never even attempts to kill her at first, because he's sexist and doesn't view her as a threat because she's a woman. I'm not fucking joking, that's an actual plot line in the movie. However, this does make me want to see the original.
For the likes of me and you.
The Adam Project is yet another time travel movie that doesn't really have much to make it stand out from the rest. I heard people describe this as the first 80s movie in over 30 years, and I can kind of see what they mean, but it's definitely not as charming. It's okay, I guess, but definitely not good enough for a rewatch. However, a bullet gets sucked into a magnet after being shot out of a gun. Wouldn't the whole gun be sucked in? I mean, even if it wasn't made of metal, the metal bullet that got sucked in after it was shot out didn't get sucked in while it was in the gun. Forget what I said. Fuck this movie.
What more can a poor boy say?
Weird, the Al Yankovic story surprised me. I thought it was going to be one of those boring biographies. It was advertised as such. But thankfully, Al had way more creative freedom than I expected. It's not a biography at all. It's more of a parody, poking fun at just how much those types of movies beat off the star and how everything is heavily exaggerated. But sadly, it's not as good as Weird Al's first movie, UHF. While a lot of the jokes hit, a lot of them don't, and it tends to over-rely on the hey, remember this tactic. But one of the biggest reasons why I didn't enjoy it as much is probably the non-stop ads that were thrown in. Seriously, the only place where you can watch this movie is on a streaming service that has just as many ads as there is movie. And no, it's not like Hulu where you can pay to remove them. No, you're gonna watch that same Clicker Picker Upper ad again and again, and you're gonna enjoy it! I googled if it was possible to watch it uninterrupted, and it basically told me to record it on third-party hardware, then fast forward through it. Yeah. A 2.5-hour runtime just isn't the length I want to sit down for when I want to watch a silly spoof movie, especially when the plot keeps going back to a red bear that's obsessed with how his asshole feels.
I could use your help in any way.
Apollo 10.5 is an interesting movie. The animation style kind of reminds me of that Lanky Kong reaction video, and it made me just as uncomfortable, but I got used to it after a while. The movie's set during the events preceding the Apollo 11 moon landing. It turns out that it was actually a child that got to go out in space first, but it was kept under wraps by NASA. I think this is supposed to be his imagination, but it doesn't make it very clear. The first half of the movie is just the main character being very descriptive on what it was like to be a poor family in the 60s. I really liked hearing this guy babble on about his childhood. He does it in such a way that gives all the family members he's describing their own personalities, and it was really obvious that the writer was loosely basing it off his own childhood. But the way the movie's laid out makes it more of an art piece than anything. I appreciate it for what it is, but I'm probably never gonna watch it again.
All that fun, you must agree.
Dog is a sweet little road trip movie about an army ranger tasked to deliver a dog to a funeral and the emotional bond they grow for each other on the way, which a lot of people are calling cliche and manipulative, but I don't give a shit, it's fucking cute. And it really opened my eyes to just how mistreated military dogs are without it feeling forced. The dialogue ranges from pretty good to pretty cheesy. I mean, I know it's normal for people to talk to dogs, but the sheer amount of exposition this dude lays upon the hairball doesn't feel natural in the slightest. But to its credit, there's not really anything else they could do without making its themes impossible to understand for the viewer. Anyway, it's pretty charming, and I'd recommend it for all you feel-good movie fanatics out there.
Even though interactively.
Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, was so close. I really liked the first Knives Out, and this one has a lot of that film's qualities, but it has Daniel Craig playing Among Us, oh my fucking god! It tries way too hard to be a comedy. The first one had comedic elements, but it all felt natural, while this one talks about dabbing, Twitch, and NFTs. Which is weird, because the first half an hour is painful, but after that, it somehow found a way to pull me back in. I started enjoying it, but then it went back to being an awful comedy. But then it was good again, what the fuck? And I fucking called that the character that was established to be cartoonishly sexist, or as they like to call him, a men's right activist. Oh geez, I wonder what you're pandering to. I fucking called that he would die first. I just didn't predict that he would be the only character to die. Jeez guys, played a little safe. At least make that character white. So close.
But now we feel that Brick should be.
The Batman is yet another overhyped comic book adaptation. I'm perfectly fine with people taking a different approach to the franchise due to this being the third canon Batman universe at the same time, but alas, it had too many ideas and too little ambition. This movie had a bit of Gotham, a bit of Telltale, a bit of Batman Returns, a bit of S7N, all plopped together in a single movie which makes all of them feel underdeveloped. It completely forgets about Alfred's existence in the second half, and he pretty much does nothing the whole movie. There's very little little chemistry between characters and the dialogue is super cheesy. But on the bright side, all the technical aspects are really good. The audio mixing, the shots, and especially the effects are all top notch, so I definitely give it points for that. Overall, it's pretty decent, but the ending was very underwhelming. It makes it seem less like a big cinematic experience and more like the first chapter to a 10-film series. Everyone being just as hyped every single time Batman gets remade baffles me.
The King of Limbo.
The Gray Man is a lot better than I expected going in. Not to say it's not just a run-of-the-mill government conspiracy action flick, but it's a fun one. Everything from the stunts to the fight choreography are all very professionally done. It doesn't over-rely on CGI. It does feel a bit generic, though. It suffers heavily from the why won't they just shoot him syndrome that plagues so many action scenes that feature people with guns. It also lacks any depth in its characters, and the story overall wasn't very impactful, but just don't think too much about it and you'll have a good time. Or maybe you won't, but I did, and that's all that matters. Quite a few cartoons have been getting soft reboots in the form of a straight-to-streaming service movie, and I gotta say, Beavis and Butt-Head definitely got a lot better treatment than stuff like Invader Zim or, for the love of God, Rocko's Modern Life. But what the hell's wrong with the villain? Why is she afraid of Beavis and Butt-Head snitching that she killed them? They're back, which means they're not dead. So it wouldn't look very bad for you! Whatever, the movie's goofy anyway. It's just a better contrast between the characters when the villain isn't also a dumbass. Funny movie, check it out. Top Gun Maverick has gotta be one of the most superior sequels of all time. Not to say it's even close to as great as people say, but that was just how basic the original was. The story here was pretty basic too, the flashback scene was particularly lame, but it definitely trumps the original with its characters. There's a character that keeps asking a female character if what the men say offend her, and she just rolls her eyes at the thought, and I'm like, damn, I don't want to hate fuck her to death, and that's the magic of good writing. I watched this over 3 months after its initial release, and the theater was still packed. We had to sit in the left of the front, so my experience looked a bit like this, and that sucked, but I still came out of the theater happy. Hopefully competing companies don't get the wrong idea on why this film was such a huge success. I watched the original for the first time 2 days before seeing this in the cinema, and I noticed just how similar the Goose character looked to the Whiplash guy. And would you know it, that's exactly who they casted to play his son here, so I thought that was neat. It doesn't really take any risks, but it was still a charming experience. I just doubt its technical aspects will even be close to as impressive at home. Avatar: The Way of Water was good, but it was way too long. The first one was 160 minutes, and it still felt justified due to just how much was going on. The sequel had a lot less, and yet it's still a full half an hour longer. I understand that movie directors think that a movie needs a long runtime for it to have a large spectacle, but James Cameron made all the Avatar sequels at the same time, so I think he should have just combined this with Avatar 3, minus all the filler, assuming Avatar 3 has a lot of filler, which it most likely will. Also, cloning the bad guys from the first one makes me think that Avatar was never meant to have a sequel. Sure, Stephen Lang played a great villain, and he still does here, but they just introduced a whole new technology that was never established in the original. There's no point in saving his life, Monkey Boy. If he dies, they'll just bring him back again. If you keep introducing new shit to your universe, you could hypothetically have unlimited Avatar sequels. What is this, the MCU? Anyway, that's why I can't put it at number 1, but do you know what I can?
The King of Limbo.
Everything, Everywhere, All at Once is a very accurate title because frankly this is a hell of a lot to take in. It's made by the same brothers who made Swiss Army Man, but I don't think it's quite as good as that movie. But I was still very surprised because it had a very powerful message that hasn't been overused. Shut up with your goth-ass nothing matters shit and let me enjoy my life. Hell, the only other thing I could think of that used this message was an episode of frickin' South Park. Except this says it in a way that feels really sweet and natural. The one big flaw this movie has is its very Japanese sense of humor. The humor almost always borders on haha this is funny because it's random and haha this is funny because it's a kink thing. And it even interrupts some potentially powerful moments that would work a lot better without them. But the likable characters and great performances more than make up for it. I love how Multiverse of Madness came out only a month after this. It's as if Marvel was showing people how specifically not to make a film like this.
A doo-wop, a dooby-doo-wop, a doo-wop, a dooby-doo-wop, a doo-wop, a dooby-doo-wop, King of Limbo.